Colorado Springs just hit a 10-year high in homes for sale, and most people moving here have no idea what that means for their wallet. Here is what the numbers are actually telling you. For the first time in years, buyers have real negotiating power in this market. But here's the catch. It's all going to come down to one hidden number. The cost of living here sits at about 2% above the national average. But that headline number is hiding something really important, because when it comes down to breaking it down category by category, Colorado Springs is a lot more affordable than you've been led to believe. So I am going to show you exactly what the numbers actually mean for your budget. The housing costs, what income you really need to live here, why interest rates aren't as bad as the headlines are making it sound, and the stat buried in the data that completely changes the affordability conversation. So let's get into it. First, the number that changed everything happened back in 2021, and it's still affecting your wallet today. Since 2026, the median home prices in Colorado Springs has consistently been on the rise, ranging from 7 to 10% each year. You can see between 2019 and 2020, there was this huge price spike. We're talking 12 to 20% increase. And most of that is tied to that COVID era, where the extremely low 3% interest rates were hitting the market and every homeowner was chasing that number. Now, flash forward to today, we can finally see some serious stabilization. Typically, you'll see house prices increase by about 1 to 2% on average each year. But right now, you can see that there is a slow downtick in 2026. This shows that there is finally some housing stabilization going on. To kind of put it into perspective, home prices in 2024 were sitting at about $463,000. As of March, we're looking at a median home price of $450,000. That is extremely significant, and it really shows that we finally have some serious market stabilization. And here is the biggest change that the number doesn't show. So back in 2024, the house hit the market, it was gone within the weekend. You had zero time to think about it as a buyer. But as of March of 2026, the average home is sitting on the market for about 60 days. We have more homes for sale right now than we've had in over a decade. This is a massive shift. We started seeing this shift in 2025, and honestly, I'm thinking it'll continue to look like the buyer is going to have all the power as we make our way through 2026. Seller concessions will continue to remain on the table. I'm talking covering closing costs, rate buy downs, and any sort of major repairs found during inspections. That hidden affordability is what was completely missing 2 years ago. But even with more power to negotiate, there is still one specific entry price you have to hit in order to make the math work here. You need to really ask yourself, what do I actually need to make to live here? So to comfortably afford the median price of $450K, you really need a household income of $105,000 to $110,000. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but don't let that number scare you off. If you're making closer to $80K, you can still make it work here in Colorado Springs, but you just have to be more strategic. Your price range is going to be between $325,000 up to $350,000. And you might be looking at either townhomes, older homes in like southern Colorado Springs, or maybe just like farther east in places like Falcon or Fountain, where you can get just more bang for your buck. And if you're military, your BAH is going to cover a good part of your mortgage, which can change the math entirely. But we'll talk about that in next week's video. Now that math only works though if you know how to navigate the one thing that scares most buyers away from the closing table. For most people looking to buy a home, the hardest pill to swallow right now is the interest rates. So let's think back to 2021. The main reason prices skyrocketed was because of that record low 3% interest rate that every single homeowner was chasing. Now, flash forward to 2024, and we saw rates jump anywhere from 7 to 8%. That scared a lot of people off. And honestly, that was the leading factor that caused the market to finally start to stabilize between 2024 and today. And as of right now, in March 2026, we're looking at an interest rate sitting at around 6.2 to 6.7%. And I really hate to be the one to break anyone's heart, but those 3% interest rates are not coming back. But here's the strategy you really need to know for 2026. Even though the market rate is in the sixes, you don't necessarily have to pay that. Look for homes that are sitting on the market longer. Sellers are more willing than ever to do the rate buy down, if that just means hooking a buyer. This is where the seller pays a lump sum at closing to lower your interest rate by about 1 to 2% for the first few years. It can save you hundreds of dollars a month and just make that $450K much more affordable. If you're a first-time buyer, don't forget about CHFA, which is the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. They offer programs that can help with your down payment and closing costs, which is a huge leg up if you're trying to hit that 80K income bracket we talked about earlier. And finally, for my VA and FHA buyers, you guys are still really in the driver's seat. Historically, VA and FHA loans offer lower interest rates than conventional loans. In today's market, while a conventional buyer might be looking at 6.7%, a VA buyer could be looking at something around 5.8 to 6.1%. So when you combine those lower interest rates and the fact that you can still negotiate with the seller to pay for like any sort of closing costs, that real cost of living in Colorado Springs just starts to look a little bit more affordable. And I know I have covered a lot of numbers so far. So if you are still watching, you are clearly very serious about making this move work. And I want to show you one more plan B that is making Colorado Springs look just a little bit more affordable. I know buying isn't the right move for everyone right away when they get here, but there is this massive shift happening right now in the rental market that's finally giving tenants the upper hand. Rental prices are finally starting to stabilize. We've actually seen a 3% downtick in rent across the entire city. For a while there, rent was just trying to stay on par with those skyrocketing housing prices. And a lot of people were getting priced out of the rental market just as fast as the housing market. But now, with the interest rates just being higher, more people are leaning towards renting. And because of that, we're just seeing more affordable options start to make an appearance. So a big reason for this change is all the new apartment complexes that have been built over the last 2 years. Thousands of new units have hit the market. And as people move into these brand new apartments, it's forcing owners of single family rentals to finally make adjustments. At the end of the day, a rental house is an investment. Having a property sit vacant because a landlord is chasing prices from 2 years ago just isn't profitable. So as these new apartments pop up with better pricing and better incentives, you're just gonna see house rentals start to drop their prices just to stay competitive. It's a win for you because it means more choices and a better price than you've seen in a really long time. When you add up the prices, the rates, and the rent, does the math actually favor the move? The question is Colorado Springs still affordable? Now, if we are comparing the Springs to other cities of similar sizes, I am going to say yes. We are still very much on par with our competition. I know that there is a lot of talk about how the average income here hasn't kept up with the housing prices, but I believe that as prices finally start to stabilize, the income to housing ratio is going to start fitting back within people's budgets. The biggest hurdle in our cost of living is definitely going to be the housing. But if you look at other elements like utilities, which is actually going to sit at about 21% below the national average, or gas or food, which is right on par with other day-to-day costs of living, it's actually very manageable to live here. My advice is just be prepared. If you're moving here from a smaller town or just a more affordable state like Texas, Alabama, or Florida, you're just going to experience some serious sticker shock. It can be extremely jarring, but that's going to happen in almost any major city you move to right now. At the end of the day, Colorado Springs is still relatively affordable. You just have to come in with a plan and understand the cost of living is just going to be different here. And make sure you're just ready to use the strategies we talked about in order to make the math work for you. All right, guys, that is it for me today. If you are still on the fence between renting and buying, you should probably check out this video right here where I break down exactly what it's like to rent versus buy in Colorado Springs in today's market. And if you're PCSing to the city and wondering just how far your BAH is actually going to get you, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Next week, I'll be posting a full breakdown on how you can stretch your BAH here in Colorado Springs. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.